Mechanics of Reddit. What is the best way to root out mechanics who are trying to take advantage of people who aren't car fluent? Ask for a call before any repairs are done. Ask for a price up front. Any replacement parts. Ask for the broken originals. If they can't pull it from the trash, they didn't even change it. Say you're interested as a layman, which you should be. It's your car after all. Definitely talk to other folks in your R for recommendations. I found my fave garage that way. Took our 96 van to them because it was running rough and the dealer wanted $sign to just look at it. The owner listened to it for a minute, pulled the engine cover, reached in, pushed the loose spark plug wire back on and crimped it a bit harder with a pair of pliers. Started it up and it ran perfectly. No charge. Customer for life. Write something on your air filter. It's one of the more common money-making scams at Jiffy Lube type places. They'll walk in with a filthy air filter and claim it's yours. Bonus points for recognizing that it's not even the right shape or size. I always mark my air filters, and oil filters, and belts, and houses, with the month, year and mileage when I replace them. I was getting an oil change and I saw someone try this on an old guy. He obviously knew it wasn't his air filter, so he grabbed it from them and on the counter blew the dust off and hit the side a bit to get more out and said, "Okay, you can put that back on your shelf now, I just changed mine." I laughed and never went back there after that. I knew an awesome mechanic once who gave me an excellent suggestion. He said when a mechanic tells you something needs to be replaced, tell them you want to keep the old part. If they were trying to rip you off, they'll suddenly change their mind. This worked for me. A few years ago I was told that the computer system on my car needed to be replaced. I told them I'd like to keep the part. A couple days later, they told me that they realized it was just a bent pin on the connection and didn't need to be replaced. The advice saved me $800 when I was a broke college student. Join your local area's buy sell trade group on FB. Ask for good mechanics. People hate douches, so public forums are a good way to combat bad mechanics. Nobody likes to get fricked by them and that makes people less likely to recommend. I did this once in a city I lived in and got 13 replies. 7 of these were for one place, so I went with that one. They were pretty good and didn't rip me off. Worked as a mechanic for 22 years. Try and stick to the same garage. Loyalty goes a long way. A packet of sweets or cakes goes a long way. Tell them you are on a budget. Remember, a quote is just a quote. More than likely it will cost you a little more. Ask for a worst case scenario. Always get an invoice and never pay cash. You could ask for the old parts back but some are exchange. Never go to a garage that advertises. Word of mouth is best for advertising. I've been going to the same garage since I was 18 with my mom's car, 30 now with my own car. Although this probably doesn't mean anything, I've always trusted them because it's been the same 5 or so guys for years. Every issues they've ever found with my car is preventative maintenance stuff. Looks like your tires need to be rotated. It's been a few oil changes since your oil is low, can we top it off? And they've never pressured me into getting something done to the car. They just note it and tell me about it. I'll probably go there forever. It's been 10 plus years and my car still runs great and they tell me my car is still in great condition. So, the fact they don't have much turnover tells me the owners don't pressure them for a sales goal and pay them reasonably well because they all still work there and seem to care about fixing the cars they get. I've always trusted them because it's been the same 5 or so guys for years. This is something to look for in other types of businesses too. I've noticed it for barbers' hair salons. The ones with high turnover do a bad job, or are hit or miss at best, but the places with the same people every time you go do a great job. For me, the sign of a good mechanic is if he says stuff like, "Part X is on its way out. If you hear this or feel that, you should come by." Or, "Yep, I can replace this and that, but personally I wouldn't do it on a car this old." Or, "I checked your brakes like you asked. They are still good for at least another 15k. The best way to truly save on maintenance. Learn how that thing works. What quirk translates in what part. Make sure you have an opinion on how you feel about just replacing parts before they break. And find someone who is willing to use parts you buy off eBay, while it can be good for some. As a general rule, better keep to reputed online shops to be sure you buy parts with acceptable quality. Hey, question time. We go to a shop that is super busy. If you're not an established client, it's a 3-week wait before they get to your car. We've been using them for 20 years and they take care of us immediately. They are the ones who, when our 10-year-old car had the transmission go, gave us the estimate and also said, hey, if you want to keep this car going, here's what you'll have to put in over the next 2 years and here's what it will cost. Are you sure you want to fix this car? When they work on my car in the summer, I stop at 7-Eleven and buy a dozen big Slurpees for the guys. It doesn't cost a lot to make their whole day. I love them. They always give me a ride home. Fix our cars the same day. They are super nice. Can we go on happily greenlighting everything they say we need, or should we be more careful? Could always go to a parts store and ask who they use. I've worked in a parts store for years and I can't tell you the amount of times people have asked my opinion on a local mechanic we service. Generally speaking, parts people know mechanics that are good and trustworthy at whatever issue you're having, from an oil change to body work. Problems with your rear differential. They're super expensive to fix but are also typically a bogus claim to get you to spend a ton of money. The downside is they're really important to fix if you actually do have an issue with them. I actually have rear differential problems with my car and they said it's too expensive to repair it, considering the value of my car. Had a transmission completely fail on me 5 days after buying a car. It had shown no symptoms before buying it at all. I was recommended to the transmission shop by a friend. They could see I was visibly upset and worried about the cost. They made an agreement to knock the entire labor charge and tax off a complete rebuild. Saved me around $900. Told me I was young and that he sees that I seemed like a good person and just to put some good out into the world to repay them. They have also dealt with me every time I brought the car back for something unrelated I was worried about. And they fixed what's broken and reassured me on what's not. Recently the car broke down and they recommended me to a garage near my house. Went there with no questions asked. The garage has also been very good to me while taking care of that same car currently. I love people with good hearts. I've read a lot of stuff on here. Your car may be working just fine but still have problems you won't notice until they become severe. Maybe your tie rod end is starting to have play or your brake pads have gotten down low enough to call for needing to replace before they've dug down into the rotor. The two best things you can do are ask to be shown the issues. Any good mechanic or shop will take you out to the car and show you the issue, or just get a second opinion at another shop. I was a former service writer for a couple years and one of the things I often hear people complain about is the laundry list of items we found wrong with the vehicle. It gives the feeling that we are just trying to tack on every little thing that is wrong with the vehicle to get as much money as we can. And this is absolutely true to an extent. We're a business trying to make money, of course, but the main reason we list all of those items is actually from a liability and service standpoint. When you bring your vehicle in for service, we are doing our service by telling you everything we see. If we neglect to tell you about something, and it causes an issue down the line, you may view us as liable incompetent for not noticing it. This certainly is not foolproof to tell if you are being scammed, but a good mechanic service right will tell you everything they find wrong with your car, then explain what you should get done. And you can usually save money doing them all at once. Had a timing cover leak on my 02 Ranger that I sure as frick wasn't going to take the time to do. I had them do the water pump while they were in there because it cost a lot less than replacing the pump on its own down the road. I'm not a mechanic but I accidentally made this spark plug test thing. Basically one time I went into a new mechanic to get my winter tires put on. At the end of the appointment they informed I really needed new spark plugs and that they could do it quick for a cheap $80. Thing is I had literally put new spark plugs in myself the day before, so I knew they were full of crap. Haven't been there since. I also find personally if mechanics ever talk you down from a more expensive fix to a cheaper one they're probably pretty good. The main mechanic I go to has literally talked me down from thinking something more expensive was wrong with my car. One time I thought my crankshaft pulley was coming off. Not a cheap or good problem to have. Turned out my alternator was just going and being noisy as heck. Otherwise the car was fine. They told me the car was fine and put in a new alternator. Fact is though they could have easily taken me for a ride and they didn't. I went to a Canadian Tire once because my car shook while driving and I wanted to know why. I paid $39.99 for them to try to screw me. They came back with an estimate of $2,500 repairs that needed to be made. I cried and left because I definitely could not afford it and couldn't understand what I needed and what I could leave behind. Well, asked around and went to somebody else. Probably an alignment or wheel balance or something super cheap. It was a while ago. Since then, and a few years later, I eventually had to get a new muffler and coolant thingy, and that's it. And it was under $450. Frick. Canadian Tire. UK. Google your local NHS ambulance trust or local authority. They offer fairly cheap mow and vehicle health checks but not repairs, so no reason to inflate problems or fabricate a work list. I'm sure there will be an equivalent in the US and elsewhere. Maybe elsewhere, but I doubt the US. Not enough profit. Get car-fluent. Download a school book aimed for entry-level students and read a bit. Other than that, stay with your car and ask the mechanic shop if it's okay that you stay with the car. If something is wrong, he'll tell and show you. When I worked for a dealership, I had no problem with folks staying near the lift as long as they weren't in my way and not under the lift itself. I did nothing to wrong them, and if there was a problem we could have a look at it together and they would know we weren't trying to frick them on the bill. Most dealerships will take a problem to you staying with the car for safety concerns, and this is valid. Doesn't mean they're up to no good. Also, don't go to a dealership would be my advice. Go to a local independent if your car is out of warranty. Read the shop manual regarding your service schedule and you'll know what to expect when you go in for your service. Don't be afraid to ask some questions. Most of us don't mind and are more than willing to answer questions. Just don't be that guy that's asking the entire time. Just a note on warranty. Going to an accredited service center will most likely not void your warranty, so check the fine print and the price. Most dealerships will tell you that you need to get their overpriced garbage to keep your warranty, but it's usually absolute BS. There will obviously be exceptions, so check what is applicable to you. I think second opinions are good. If your car can't run, that is. It's tough when it limp towed to a shop. A little knowledge can go a long way too. When I took my car to the dealership for a recall on my 2004 car in 2015, LOL, they tried to upsell like mad. Inspection this and brake change that. They also tried to tell me they could change my transmission fluid for some amount of money, around $60 or so. What they didn't know is literally that month I had read up on transmission fluid in my car for some reason, and it's a sealed unit. The manual of the car even says it will never have to be serviced for the life of the car. A part of me wonders what would have been done if I decided to let them do it. How can a mechanic upsell with that kind of lying practice? I would feel horrible. You still may want to change your transmission fluid though. I have a sealed unit on my 05 4Runner. But change the trans fluid at 100k. The lifetime fluid is bulls. Like anything else, if you want the unit to last, change the fluid. Former wrench turner and all around gearhead. I have friends and family that will ask me to go with them and listen to the mechanic describe the problem and the fix. I will then either agree or disagree and they'll move forward. Number, I won't give your car a tune-up. I've found just casually leaving my ADI reader on the passenger seat lets any mechanic think I know what I am talking about. I don't. Take your car to a mechanic when there are no problems. Make something up that is wrong. Ask them to call you for approval before making any repairs. If they come back with a lot of problems, they are bogus. Sounds good, but I would never do this. Sounds time consuming for me and the mechanic. My mechanic has done some real minor repairs and either not charged or charged way lower than the dealership because he wants my return business. My car was dead and wouldn't start even after being jumped. I had it towed and brought it to his shop, and he pulled out a different kind of jumper and the car started up immediately. Frustrating, but since I couldn't jump it at home, I figured it was something out of my hands. He ended up not charging me because it was such a quick fix for him, and he said he doesn't wanna scam people. He just wants them to be safe and for his shop to be able to keep the lights on. He fixed my AC for a little over half of what the dealership wanted, and I now recommend all of my friends and family to him. His shop is honest and they do good work. I used to work in a car parts store. When someone asked where to get the part they just bought fitted, we would recommend the best mechanics that bought from us. Yes, it was kind of cronyism, but they actually were good mechanics and not overpriced. The idea is that our name is now attached as we recommended them. When you are not knowledgeable on cars, anything a mechanic tells you is gibberish, so you just have to believe them. Many chain shops have built-in charges and rip-off methods, such as always adding an air filter or claiming some gasket is blown, but this sort of thing is slowly stopping as litigation is expensive. Check local reviews and check your basic stuff before dropping it off to avoid it. Google is your friend here. Your average mechanic who works for a company has no vested interest in overcharging you, as he/she is on a fixed wage. Overcharging is generally a company thing. Independent mechanics are hit and miss. I know a lot of them, and 80% of them I would happily recommend, but each one has a specialty, and so depending on the problem I would recommend a different mechanic. Remember that diesel and petrol cars are different, and so I would recommend taking your car to a mechanic that excels in one or the other. A mechanic who is also an engineer is basically a straight win. They are few and far between, but if you find one, stay. The reason is that a plain mechanic may know how to replace the part, but he may not know the fine details. An engineer actually understands more about what is going on and can act more appropriately. Sometimes they can actually fabricate a better part themselves. Buy a repair manual for your car. There are many out there, but I prefer Haynes. Even if you never take a tool to your car, it will give you a strong understanding of how it goes together and will tell you how to do the simple stuff. Depending on the job, that book could save you hundreds of dollars, so it's definitely worth the cost. Mechanic here. Little late to the party, but feel free to ask any questions you may have. I am more than happy to answer. The advice people are giving here about asking for parts back and asking friends and family where they go is excellent. A good general rule is to follow is if you feel like you're being scammed, don't hesitate to leave and get a second opinion. If it's the same issue another garage points out, you should have the work done. I've seen one person here suggest to avoid dealerships outside of warranty, and while that is mediocre advice, dealers generally charge more than small shops. Dealers also are the people that know your year, make, model better than anyone, as they have specific training to those cars' trucks. Dealers have also been working on your kind of car since it was new. They tend to know common issues and what is needed to fix them. Both small shops and dealers can be shady, so don't hold one or the other to be inherently sketchy. Find somewhere with good reviews and go there. Small shops are also good because they generally charge less than dealers and are more likely to try and help you out financially, whereas most dealers won't. I have heard small shops offering payment plans for expensive work being done, and I do know of some small shops that will waive diagnostic fees if you do the work. Dealers simply won't do those things. My best piece of advice I haven't seen mentioned here is when given a quote, ask for the order of importance for work to be done. A good mechanic will do this without you asking, but if they don't ask, a knowledgeable mechanic should be able to explain the issues to you and be able to tell how severe they are and what will happen if you don't do the work. Keep an eye out for them always listing the most expensive work as the most important. While this is often the case, it shouldn't be a ruler across the board. For example, a loose ball joint is often unsafe to drive on and can cause early wear to other parts. If it totally fails, your vehicle will be undrivable and you could cause an accident. With that being said, ball joints are cheaper to replace than some oil pan gaskets that may only have a minor leak. While both are important to repair, one is much more important. A good indicator of a trustworthy mechanic is if they tell you about things that might be potential issues down the line, but don't need to be done right now. For example, a part is showing some signs of age and wear, but is still safe for now. Bad mechanics who want to rip you off won't bother doing this. They will just say it needs to be replaced, even if you could get another 6 months to a year out of it. Another good sign is if a mechanic tells you things that don't have to be done, but should be. For example, if they are doing your timing belt and they recommend replacing the water pump as well even though it isn't leaking. Reason being that it's a common failure point that results in doing a lot of the same labor twice. So long term it will save you money and headaches. A bad mechanic won't mention it, because then they get to do almost the same job twice. Shops live and die from word of mouth. Ask friends. It's a joke but is also true. Good, fast, cheap. You can have 2 of those 3 things. Remember that when looking for a place, a service writer that will take time to explain why something needs done in terms you can grasp. Because you'll kill somebody or your car will blow up isn't good enough. When you do find a shop, everyone can screw up. If we messed up, let us make it right. We value loyalty as much as you. We know you didn't bring the car in for those new shocks we told you it needed, or someone was screwing around under the hood before you brought it back to us. And finally, this isn't just for finding a shop, this applies just as much to the shop you've been using for 30 years. IT is not cheaper if you don't tell us that X stopped working when your brother was messing around with Y or withholding other information. I can't tell you how many times I've spent hours, and that equals customers' money, looking for an issue I could have found in minutes if you said someone was trying to do something before you brought it to me. Simple example. Car won't start after your neighbor installed a radio. I'm looking at all kinds of issues only to find they blew a fuse and removed a computer fuse because they thought it was a spare. Best garage I ever knew would offer to put any replaced parts in the trunk. Proof that they did the work. Stuck with them for years until my job forced a move. There is something wrong with your car but we don't know what. My mom was taken advantage of by a small-time local mechanic. Something was draining the battery so she brought it in. They didn't know what was wrong so they rewired everything to this box. The part was really expensive. $500 plus. You flip the switch every time you park the car. This fix made it so the gas gauge and other small things no longer work. We had a friend who knows old cars and does funky fixes. It took some time, but there was some loose ground wire or something. He fixed it and it worked flawlessly ever since, and rear part and rewiring was rendered useless. Mechanic here for 14 years. It might sound pedantic but poke your head into the workshop. When I was an apprentice my boss told me how it looks is how it works. If there is crap everywhere, chances are the guys are not very thorough. A clean workshop is an effective workshop. It's not always a perfect indicator, but if a mechanic cares about how his customers perceive his business and him, think the difference between a mechanic and a grease monkey, it is fair to suggest he will be looked after. We vacuum the car, clean the engine bay down and wipe the engine covers over with CRC. It's the 1%ers that build trust with a customer. I used to bring my Camry to the Toyota dealer for service. They adhere to a dealer recommended schedule of maintenance that seems to be built around dealer profit. For example, after I dropped my car off for something, they would call me back with a long list of things, including things like power steering flush. Now, it's one thing if the power steering is making noise, or if they actually opened it and sampled the fluid and found it dirty, but they would usually admit that it was just based on mileage. If yours does this to you, find a recommended private mechanic. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.